What's going on, boys? Thanks to our patrons and Fiverr customers, subscribe to our Patreon free for behind-the-scenes stuff, arm yourselves, typology stuff. Timestamp in the pinned comment to skip the intro. Before we get into the video proper, we will soon have typology services available on Fiverr. No typing, no live consultations, $30, one question answered to the best of my ability. Everything is set up and ready to go. It's not live yet because I am dreading pushing that button, but it will go live soon and I will announce it once I am good and ready. People will not stop bugging me on my tarot gig about typology. Most people won't take no for an answer. So if there is no way to avoid typology agitation, then I might as well be paid for it. And I should probably increase the price, because just $30 for one question won't filter enough people out. I've considered offering typology services for a long time, but typology people compared to tarot people are more obnoxious than I think you realize they are. And you'd expect it to be the inverse, because tarot is supposed to be this unfounded, woo-woo psychic bullshit, and typology is supposed to be this self-knowledge communication tool, and typology people are the ones with zero self-knowledge and zero communication skills. How does that happen? Why does that happen? My issue is, when I first got into typology, I believed most typology services were unreasonably priced. And you can look in other areas, other stuff I do. I try to do things either free or fair. But now that I've dealt with typology people for a while, even when I wasn't supposed to be dealing with them, I understand why typology services are priced out the nose. It's a filter. It is a service charge for irritation. For a while there, you couldn't pay me to deal with that level of irritation. But if you'll be dealing with that irritation anyway, you should be paid for it. And I've been thinking about this too. Someone who did take no for an answer and wasn't a cunt brought up a good possibility. One I've heard before, but I couldn't think of a good way to do it. But if this is another thing that'll be brought up a lot, ENTJ consultations. I like working with ENTJs when I can. And the very first ENTJ I worked for suggested that. So maybe we will figure out a way to set that up after we see how this basic typology services thing works. Fiverr support usually does a good job, but Fiverr as a platform is limited, and the way they operate is starting to get under my skin. But that wouldn't be an awful income if I could figure out how to do it well and where to do it. I think the best way to do it would be a Patreon tier as that subscription, and offer some kind of consultation package. The benefit of Patreon being fewer restrictions, you can do things exactly the way you want to do them. The issue being less accountability overall, and frankly less professionalism. Fiverr gets under my skin because of how professional it expects you to be on a freelancing service, but that's also one of the reasons I like it, and one of the reasons when issues arise I can usually deal with them, because everything is accounted for. There is accountability from top to bottom, and that I like. But if you want to do anything outside the bounds of what little Fiverr provides, like they didn't even have team accounts for a number of years, which is crazy to me, you're fucked. The big issue with both services being vetting. I don't like the ability for a customer or a client to send money before we've worked out what's going on or what they want, whether or not I think we can or should work together. Neither Fiverr nor Patreon has a way to deal with that, and I really don't like it. Because people will just buy shit, at least on Fiverr, people will just buy things and not know what they're buying, not know what they want, and then get upset when they get what they paid for. And Fiverr is good. You can resolve those issues on Fiverr because of all of the accountability, but I would prefer not to need to deal with that stress in the first place. It's not efficient. Of course, the side benefit of Patreon being if that or something like that happened on Patreon and somebody sent you money not knowing what they wanted or getting shitty afterward, they are totally fucked. And that's cool, but it's also uncool. I'd like enough freedom and accountability measures to be fair the way I outline as fair. We'll figure it out eventually. Anyway, almost 7 minutes in, let us begin the video. MBTI types and video games. This one will work a little bit different from the previous videos we've done in this format. We are going by cognitive functions this time, and we are not thinking what function or type would be best at what game. This is a list of functions / types I would like to see playing these games for these reasons. Because I don't know about you, when I was younger, my friends and I, when we were young, we rarely did the group party games thing. It was more a working shifts on the controller situation. And I like watching people play games, especially in person, because you learn a lot about them that way. Extroverted thinking. For TE, I'd like to see TE, NI, and TESI types play RimWorld. RimWorld is a colony management game with more emphasis on the characters and the situations than, say, with Dwarf Fortress, but also with more logistics involvement than, say, The Sims. And I'd like to see those forms of TE play RimWorld because I want to see the way different forms of TE prepare for troubles. With TE, you necessarily have FI, so to what degree or what level of emphasis do you put on pawns or colonists as individuals? Do you completely discount them as people and focus on efficiency? Or do you focus your efficiency not necessarily into colony security, but more into happiness efficiency? The most efficient ways to make people happy within shitty situations. I don't know. And then on top of that, almost like mold growing, I want to see how TE adaptability works between TENI and TESI. And actually, by extension, the designs of the colonies as they fill out. I'm imagining TENI as a high-risk, high-reward playstyle specializing in one strategy, and TESI building more of a logistical foundation and then slowly expanding into different specialties. But would it actually? Would TESI, and therefore NE, be more of the maverick playstyle, doing wacky shit? I mean, in RimWorld you have these things called kill boxes, and I don't know if these fall under the same term as kill boxes. A kill box, you wall off your colony and then set it up so raiders can come in only one way. That used to be a big, huge strategy. I think that's starting to fall off now because raiders are getting a little bit smarter. But, so you have an entire field of fire to lead erase anyone who tries to fuck with you. But Then you also have more Baroque self-defense measures, including labyrinths, and depending on your mods, perhaps actual minotaurs, but more likely closing them in raising the temperature, setting fires, and burning people alive, or freezing them to death. Efficiency is really interesting when it gets focused, because efficiency is not necessarily the most straightforward thing. And the reason I bring that up is I'm willing to bet. I have a weird suspicion TESI/NE types came up with that shit first. Extroverted feeling. I wrote Among Us, but I'm more thinking any role play game in which you need to get into character and do your job, but with overarching goals. Space Station 13 comes to mind. Maybe Barotrauma, I've never played that. Or like those murder mystery dinner party things. Those are not actually so bad. I think maybe that sort of thing is fascinating to me, even though I feel like I shouldn't like it. I do end up liking it once I get into it. Just stresses the shit out of me. I think Effie is attracted or has strong feelings about those sorts of things because it's an opportunity to stretch your social legs in a cutting way. Usually with Effie, at least with low Effie, there is this, or you're using it primarily to try to keep the social pH levels balanced, but you're always aware there is a sharpness to Fe, and you see that more with high Fe types. I'd like to see Fe types use Fe in that sharp way in a safe setting so they can really go wild with it. How different are you from your true self? How deeply do you get into your role? And the reason I say, yeah, probably Space Station 13 would be better, because deception isn't necessarily the thing, or shouldn't be the main thing. I don't just want to see, I want to feel other Fe types feeling their way through a jungle gym of people to get to their goal. That's what I want to see. And I think I want to see that a lot because it'll help me figure out how better to use Fe. I use Fe in a very particular way. I want to see all the different ways it can be used because I know they're there. I can feel them. I just don't use them because I think I would be bad at them. But if I got to watch other people use Fe at a high level in a controlled setting, that would be awesome. Video games are cool for that. Oh, and the explanation, I'm sure you know what Among Us is. I've never played it, but God, it was inescapable. It's still kind of inescapable. Among Us wounded the internet. Team of people on a space station. You need to fulfill your duties or your tasks, I think they're called. 2 are imposters. They need to kill everybody else. They call votes. They vote on who the imposters are and try to eliminate the 2 imposters while the 2 imposters try to kill everybody else. Again, never played it. I'm probably getting something wrong in there. Space Station 13, another game I have never played but watched a bit of. You're on a space station. There are a bunch of different jobs to do. You get in, you do your job, and I think some people's roles are designed to cause conflict or chaos. But chaos arises anyway. It's a game, but the same way RimWorld is a story builder, but with logistics and a bunch of different shit going on, Space Station 13 seems to be a story builder, but based on personalities, benefited by these roles. Barotrauma I know the least about, but as I understand it, it's more focused than Space Station 13 is in the sense you do have jobs to do. You're on a submarine in Europa's ice shell, moon, ocean, or what have you. And even though it's supposed to be more focused, bullshit happens anyway. Again, I know the least about that one. Introverted thinking. For TI, I am thinking Dark Souls, but the lore specifically And if there were a game in which you need to piece together what's actually happening using tidbits of lore the way Dark Souls uses it, that would be the game I would want to see TINE and TISE play. And for the specific context here, Dark Souls doesn't tell you its story. Again, I'm sure you already know what Dark Souls is. It got really popular, but it doesn't tell you its story. You find stuff and then you read item descriptions, and in the description of these items, you get ideas of what else is going on. It's like a detective thing. I want to watch the different ways SE and NE use TI. That's why this is the TI game, but with this one it's way more about those two perceiving functions. How do those different combinations put the pieces together? Who gets it the most right, and who gets close faster? Because people continue to discount SE's abstract big picture capabilities. It doesn't do it the same way NE does, but I think SE, especially with the help of NI and TI, I'd be willing to bet if there were a race, contrary to what I think you might think, I think SE would get there or get close faster than NE would. Which is odd because when you think about functions, especially putting abstract ideas together, putting a picture together, you lean toward NE, but I think SE would do it a lot faster, get closer a lot faster. And then NE would cement the picture long term better. Introverted feeling. Witcher 3. There is way too much context here to explain exactly what's going on. And actually, we aren't thinking necessarily about the huge picture or the main story here. We are more thinking about the side stories and the DLCs. And in that context, think episodic Shrek, monster of the week, but actually tragedy and moral conundrum of the week. It's kind of Star Trek-y in that way. Monster Hunter deals with a lot of monsters who, in some cases, maybe aren't so monstrous, and in other cases, maybe are, and might be even worse. And I say FI for Witcher 3, and not any specific sort of FI, all sorts of FI. FI has come to fascinate me as a function. I choose FI and Witcher 3 because I think if you watch someone play Witcher 3, especially an FI type, because it is a continuous set of emotional, moral quandaries, you can get a good idea of who they are and what they think is important and why, especially on that moral front. It's different from just asking an FI type a bunch of difficult moral questions. The reason, well, narratives are wonderful in general, but video games especially, it puts all these questions in a singular context. So they aren't this over here, that over there. You're building that moral case. You're fleshing out your morality, or watching someone else flesh out their morality, or share their fleshed out morality with you within that context. It's the connectivity, connective tissue. That's what I was thinking of. And this particular bit came about when an old friend who was an FI type and I were discussing the werewolf quest. Now, what happens in the werewolf quest, if I'm remembering this correctly, it's been a long, long time since I played Witcher 3. Jesus Christ, that was 10 years ago. Ugh. Ooh. I think it goes, man and woman are married, but man is a werewolf or becomes a werewolf. So he goes out into the woods, he's a hunter, so he can transform without killing anybody, especially his wife. But then I think it's his wife's sister wanted him. So she engineers a situation in which her sister, the guy's wife, encounters him as a werewolf, and as a werewolf, he doesn't have as much control over himself, so he kills his wife. And in the course of your hunt or your investigation, you uncover what happens, and then dude, as a werewolf, encounters his wife's sister, and it's revealed to him what she did. And your options are either let him kill her and take revenge, or save her and kill him. And, right, even if you let him kill her, you have to kill him afterward, but it's not a fight because he just wants to die. My position is let him kill her because that's what she did. It's not just murder, that's so much worse. Your sister, you get your sister killed by her husband because you wanted him. It's just disgusting. I'm glad in all my games he kills her. But my buddy had the opposite opinion. Because Geralt is the main character, is a witcher, he's a monster hunter, he needs, the werewolf needs to die, the woman needs to be saved, both because it's your responsibility to kill monsters, and because shedding more blood won't solve the problem. Of course, that leaves open the question, what else is this crazy bitch gonna do if you save her? But it was, in my mind, it was so clear that she needed to die. It was shocking to me that there was another point of view, and I want to see more of that, and I want to see it specifically from an FI point of view, because I want to see FI's reasoning through all these decisions. And Witcher 3 is great because there are tons of these decisions. Again, all within the same context. Oh god, and then it's been a long time. Minor spoilers, I guess. The werewolf thing, that was, I mean, it's a spoiler, but I hardly consider it one. It's such a small quest so early in the game, but it's so fundamental to what Witcher 3 is in my mind. Again, not remembering clearly, but when Yennefer wants to fuck up those northern, Stalingrad? No. Skellige. Yennefer wants to defile the Skellige's burial grounds because they need something, or she and Geralt need something. I don't remember if you can stop her or not. I don't think you can. But that was the moment I realized Yennefer is worst girl. Yes, I remember. I'm pretty sure the Skelligans are pretty shitty. A lot of people in The Witcher are shitty. But you don't fuck with people's dead ancestors like that. And now we get into the extroverted functions. Extroverted sensing. I want to watch SE types play Rust. Rust is a big multiplayer survival combat, often or almost always faction combat game. It has one of the most poisonous user bases I've ever seen outside League of Legends. I have never enjoyed playing it, even though I like the process of it, but every time I play Rust, I am miserable and angry afterward. Or stressed, even if everything goes well. It's highly competitive, people are very aggressive. People group together and take slaves, or they work together and build these huge bases, and then the game mostly revolves around raiding one another, so attacking each other's bases, sneaking in, pulling shenanigans, all this other bullshit. Makes for great YouTube videos, but there's so much potential there for fun. I think I failed at Rust because I liked the role-playing aspect of it. And that is not how you play Rust, even though you could. Anyway, I want to watch SE types strategize. Once again, all different sorts of SE types and combinations here. I want to see the way SE does guerrilla shit to conquer its enemies. Because watching somebody play Rust feels like watching the UFC or something. They aren't playing a fun game from the moment they log in to the moment they log off. They are fighting, sometimes literally, but even task prioritization in Rust feels like part of a fight. So how does an SE type manage threats and elevate itself? That's what I want to see. I want to see how creative it gets, or how straightforward it gets. I want to see SE shot calling. And Rust is the perfect game for it because everything is a shot that needs to be called. Super stressful. I hate it, and I'm awful at it. But boy, is it fun to watch. High Fleet is kind of the same thing. I think I put that somewhere on my list. Or no, I put it with TE. I would love to watch a TE type play High Fleet, but it's TE strategy and SE strategy seem to be different things even when they're within the same type. High Fleet is this, well, it's a fleet combat game. It's a lot of things, but think submarine warfare in the sky on Arrakis. Crazy submarine warfare shit. That's another one you should look up videos of if you're curious. The plays people make. Oh boy. Sometimes people will send out, I mean, this is an elementary strat, apparently. I'd never thought of it. I would never think to do it. They take one ship out of their fleet, put transmitters on it. I don't remember what they are. But then send it off in a crazy direction, and then essentially have it scream in radio. I think those ships are called screamers, or that sort of ship is called a screamer. To distract people, to get opponent fleets to move over there instead of toward your main fleet so you can attack unobstructed. And then the missiles will seek either heat or radio waves or what have you, but then you can determine when or at what distance their sensors will activate. So if you want them to pass, say, this fleet, but then activate and seek on a fleet behind it, and you have to calculate all this stuff. That's kind of why I put it more with TE, because it is tactical, it is strategy, but there's a lot of calculation involved. But still, I'd love to see SE give that a go. Extroverted intuition. I'd like to see any play a strategy game like Total War Warhammer 3, or something in that vein. Warhammer 3 basically is an empire builder, or a 4X they call it, but less with an emphasis on empire management necessarily, and more with an emphasis on combat. And if you're familiar with this stuff, you might be wondering why not something like Stellaris or Civilization. I'm choosing Warhammer 3 specifically because of its emphasis on combat, or on conflict. I want to watch any deal with an increasing number of threats. Similar to SE's abstract side, which we mentioned earlier, this is still abstract, but I want to watch any deal with something or an evolving situation in the moment, especially with limited resources. I want to see how creative any can get to deal with big problems like these. Warhammer 3 refuses to let you get comfortable the way a Stellaris or a Civilization might. And I want to watch any deal with this stress and solve these problems for two reasons. One, because any is linked with SI, I'm wondering if under extreme stress, any will let SI take over and try to turtle up and protect itself, or will it shut down SI and go totally wild? Because I think it's a common experience, well, I'm beginning to think it's a common experience for all NE and SI types. So the NPs and the SJs have these moments the situation is so bad, you are certain SI or sticking with SI and its sensibilities will not save you. And then it's like SI gets shut off and you launch yourself into wild nonsense possibility in an effort to protect yourself. You realize there is no proper, rational, reasonable way to deal with this situation, or even moral way to deal with this situation. So you put any on the throne and look for something. That's what I'm curious about. At what point does that happen? Or, because it's a video game, will it happen at all? And then, two, Warhammer 3 is wonderful. I love that entire series. I still kind of prefer Warhammer 2. That game, I think, saved my life at a really bad time. But there's so much stuff in it. So many races, so many factions, so many units, and therefore different army compositions, different strategies. What wacky solutions, or what will any come up with when put into a corner to deal with overwhelming situations? What does stressed any in problem solving or in strategy mode look like? What does it do? Does it reach for anything? Or is there a logic to it that we don't normally see because SI, even in any DOMs, is still working to keep them within the realms of the normal? Introverted sensing. And with SI, I'm thinking something like Fable 3, or maybe I didn't get super far into it, but Pathfinder Wrath of the Righteous. Tried to get into Pathfinder Kingmaker and hated it. Tried to get into Pathfinder Wrath of the Righteous and started getting into it and then hated it, which is frustrating because I really wanted to like that game. And then Baldur's Gate 3 came out, and I don't think I'm ever going to go back to that. Oof. Ooh. Ooh, can you imagine being in the same genre as Baldur's Gate 3? And it's like the coughing baby versus hydrogen bomb thing. It was Pathfinder was cute. That's what it was. Anyway, for context, because Wrath of the Righteous, Pathfinder, and Fable 3 are very different games, the connective tissue here is how do you make decisions once you come into power after having dealt with problems on the ground level or dealt with people on the ground level beforehand or to get into power. And in this example, this absolutely connects up with TI and FI. What are your priorities now that you've achieved power after having dealt with this world, lived in it, as a peasant, say? And actually, I guess we are leaning back toward Fable for a moment. Oh, fuck, I forgot my context. Fable 3, you start low, climb up, go on adventures and whatnot, and then you become the king of the realm, but you're aware there is something awful coming that you weren't aware of. The king you deposed, I think it's your brother, right? Or your adoptive brother? Something like that. He was an awful king because he was squeezing the nation dry to have the resources and to get everybody ready to deal with this terrible threat that's coming. Then, what are you going to do about it now that you're king? Will you honor your promises or try to be a good person, make everybody happy at the probable cost of annihilation in however many years? Or will you do exactly what the old king did, but even worse, so everybody will survive? Because it's a Fable game, fascinating concept, but they fucked it up. Because you can actually, if you're careful, you can save up so much money before you become king. You can honor all of your promises and do the social welfare and do the green program, take care of the environment and all this stuff, and still have enough money to save the world, but by the end people will hate you because that's supposed to be the twist. By being a good person, you're actually a bad person, and by being a bad person, you're actually a good person. So if you made all the good decisions or kind decisions, people will hate you because you left them unprepared. Make all the bad decisions, people will love you in the end because you saved them. But playing smart, you can avoid that and be a good person, but they'll still hate you at the end. It's really stupid. But the concept is fascinating. I guess that's the entire Fable series. Most correctly, I would say I want to watch an SI type solve problems after that SI type has lived in those problems. As in, let's say you were made Master of America, and you're an American, you've been an American, suffered in America. What changes would you make based on your experience? And that would be interesting to watch anybody do, but specifically SI types, because I want to see what SI cares about and the ways SI cares about these things. Because SI is very particular about some things. Because for SI types, it's not just you've seen a problem or you've lived a problem or you're aware of a problem. With SI, you are still living that problem. You'll never not be living that problem, even if it's been resolved. Nothing is ever finished. And in some way, best through video games, I want to watch what people end up caring about or what focuses they take from their sufferings, and then what they do about them once they have power. It's less about what they do and more of an indicator of what they focused on when they were living it and now what they're continuing to live. That's what I want to figure out. And then finally, introverted intuition. I want to watch NI play Disco Elysium. I want to watch anybody play Disco Elysium and talk about it. There are so many wonderful Disco Elysium playthroughs on YouTube, and they're all so different. I just adore them. But I want to watch NI types play Disco Elysium for two reasons. One, I want to watch them tweak over comparisons to the real world. This is a light theory I haven't done a lot of thinking about, but I think SI types get more generally immersed in game worlds than NI types do. Though when NI/SE types do get invested, they get a lot more invested, but if they're reminded much or too much of the real world, they cannot immerse themselves. Again, that's a super light theory, but something I'll be paying attention to. I want to watch an NI type start fussing about the real world and trying to psychoanalyze the creators. That's another thing I notice NI types do. They're always trying to work out what a person is based on things that are not them. And that's not unreasonable, but I don't know why they always seem to default to that. It's like for types with SE types never seem especially concerned with what's in front of them. I'd like to watch an NI type try to do violent reverse mitosis between Disco Elysium and the real world. And I want to see which connections they make, because NI is fascinating as a function. I've thought about why NI is so frustrating to me as a TI type. When you're dealing with them, NI and TI seem to operate in a similar way, i.e. chains, this, then that, but NI, when they take a step, it doesn't look like there's any work between their steps. So when they're right about something, you feel like you should be able to understand it, or they should be able to explain it, but they can't exactly, because that's not the way NI works. And then when they fuck up, it's frustrating because there's not really any lesson to learn, because at least to you there doesn't appear to be any reason for them to have stepped in that direction in the first place. It's with NI, it seems like if you would have it, or even just dealing with it, or even knowing it exists out there, maybe that's even stronger for INTPs and INFPs with NI Critic. It's such a stress knowing there are people who will just go from one thing to another thing and act like that's reasonable, and it's not. Though it can be, because sometimes it's right, and when it's right, it's very right. And that's the next reason I want to watch them play Disco Elysium. I want to see how quickly an NI type can, similar to what we said with the TISE thing. Again, I'm realizing these are rather similar functions, at least not in the way they operate at all, but the way they look from the outside. I want to watch an NI type try to put things together. How quickly can they resolve the mystery or figure out what's a good lead, what's a bad lead, who Harry is, all this stuff. How quickly can you skip the steps? Or how wrong can you be? That's another fascinating thing about NI that I will give it, that I actually like about it. Trying to get them to explain their huge wrong steps. That's fun. But the issue with that is when NI types are wrong, they never want to talk about it. And I don't know why. Oh, and I forgot the context. Disco Elysium is a detective game. And that's all I'm giving you. If you've never played it before, or God bless you if you've never even heard of it before, unlike any other game on this list, this one I am telling you, go play it. Stay blind. You don't like video games? You're gonna like this one. And you don't need to be good at games to play them. You can play the entire thing with your mouse. I think there's a phone version now. Go play it, and think about it, and love it, and come and join us. Anyway, those are all the video games I would love to watch types, but more specifically these people with these cognitive functions, play, so I have an excuse to learn more about them. Like if you enjoyed, subscribe if you haven't.